For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble, and we are live on this Friday, February 4th. Lots of F's today. Well, lots of F's thrown around and lots of F's given and lots of F's not given this week. We are live now. Here's the deal. We had pre-taped a show earlier in the week. I think it was Tuesday maybe, and it was just, I was on a roll. We had taped our entertainment headline show, and then I got into a debate with somebody, and we just started talking about things, and I thought, let me just hit record. I'm going to do a bunch of segments, and it was enough to fill a show, and so we taped that. And then just as the week has played out, it's kind of like, wow, what a shit show of a week. And I thought, I mean, I'm known for being an entertainment reporter. That's my main job. How can I not come on this show and not talk about all of those things? I'm talking about Whoopi Goldberg. That's sort of the big story. But elsewhere in the news, obviously the Olympics today. And here's the thing: it's just the opening ceremony that's happening literally right now as I'm talking to you. But I feel duped all the time because the Olympics actually started a few days ago. I didn't realize that. I didn't know that the events start happening. Like, you'd think that the opening ceremony is kind of like the kickoff. All right, now the events begin. Well, you've already had people competing before these people step up and take the oath and all this other stuff. So then I just kind of think, if I'm competing in those first 2 days, well, can I cheat and lie and scheme? And that's okay because I haven't taken the oath yet. So anyway, but let's rewind, because I guess this week, Sunday, started actually on Saturday or even last Friday for my Canadian friends, because there's this Freedom Trucker Convoy that converged on Ottawa and then Alberta, and now apparently a couple other cities across the country. Actually, my city right now as I'm talking to you, apparently it's supposed to be starting in Winnipeg. And in case you haven't heard, this is a group of people who protest the vaccine mandate. Truck drivers are not allowed to cross back and forth from the Canadian to U.S. border back and forth without being vaccinated. And that's a rule that's apparently through both countries. They've made it very clear that this is the rule. It was announced a long time ago, but it was just only enforced in the last few weeks and months. And so these truckers are saying, hey, you know what, you can't force me to inject something into my body. And they take a stand and they protest. And the rally basically had truck drivers, originally it was supposed to be, come to Ottawa, park in front of the Parliament building, honk their horns, have their protest signs, and that's that. So that played out last weekend. It was, by all accounts, peaceful. You had a couple idiots that, peed on a statue, a war memorial statue, and danced and dressed up one of the other statues and things. And of course, those are the scenes, those are the pictures, the visuals that you get on the news, right? And I'm sitting there going, hey, if there's 8,000 people and it was only 10 that were up to no good, that's pretty good then. So the protest continued on. I'm seeing we're getting those crackling lines. See, we're live, so there's really nothing I can do about this. If we were pre-taping, we could, stop down. They just changed out the microphone because we were having an issue like 10 minutes ago, and so I see now on my screen as I'm talking, there's the odd crackle coming up. So I do apologize, but again, we're live, and that's what happens. So last weekend in Ottawa, you've got all these people there. The horns are honking all literally night and day. The community is just turned upside down in that area anyway. And I mean, especially when you've got all these extra thousands of people in town, the residents are kind of a little bit on edge. The businesses have closed. Apparently they were being harassed. The big mall that's there was closed because people stormed it and weren't wearing masks and all this other stuff. So I have a newspaper column. I write it on Mondays. It goes into the newspaper on Wednesday. Now, with a story like this, it's always kind of tough to comment on it because there could be a major development on Tuesday or even Wednesday morning when people get the newspaper. So I had written it Monday, and I just said, well, all these people went to Ottawa. That's great. Look, my company's called Speak Free Media, so I'm the first person to go and say, speak your mind, stand up for what you believe in, as long as you're not an asshole about it, as long as you're not, if you're going into town and you're smashing windows and scaring people and things like that, So that was my my opinion. My point in my column was, that's great. Have your say. Do the protest. Do you want Prime Minister Trudeau to reverse the mandate? You want life back to normal? I get it. They're not budging. The government is not going to change the rule. They have no desire to meet with you. Now, I'm not saying that means that you should turn around and go home. What I'm saying is you had your say, right? I mean, a protest kind of is like, it goes there for a day. You show up, you speak your mind, you stand for what it is, and if nothing comes of it, you go home. Or in this instance, they stick it out, right? There was a fundraising campaign that raised over $10 million for this group. But the problem is that it started out as truckers, and now it's just a whole bunch of other people. And because there were some flags, Nazi flags and different things that showed up last weekend in Ottawa, now there's this concern about, well, this is a radical demonstration. That's illegal. It's not allowed. The GoFundMe campaign needs to be shut down. So it was being reviewed, and it just became quite dramatic. Then we heard in Alberta, across the country, there was another trucker protest. They were blocking the border and things like that. So here was my opinion that then also got me just thrashed on social media. Now, again, I, in my columns and on this show or wherever, I present an opinion, a commentary, a train of thought. You can agree, disagree, that's fine. And you're entitled to do that, just as I disagree. And, I never come on here. I'm not a Whoopi Goldberg. I don't come on and say, this is the way it is, and that's that. Because I realize that there's different points of view and different perspectives, and I appreciate that. We'll talk about Whoopi in a second. We haven't even got to Monday yet. So this is last weekend. And so that was my opinion was, okay, you've said it. A lot of these people ended up going home on Monday, so they clearly weren't there for the long haul, no pun intended. And so you kind of wonder then, well, wait a second, you really lost the clout, because the whole idea was we're all going to come there, we're all going to camp out, we're all going to support this, and then it fizzles out by Monday. So you're kind of like, well, people said, okay, well, it didn't work, so I'm going home, And that was sort of how I viewed it. Now, people then were calling me an idiot, an asshole, whatever, and I'm sitting there going, here's the deal. Anytime you want to have a civilized debate or conversation or disagreement, whatever, you can do it. But as soon as you launch into the idiot, you fuckhead, blah, blah, that's where, I don't even bother. I don't even, anything that you say after that, you name call, you degrade, you whatever, nothing that you say has any clout to it after that. That's just kind of the way I feel. Now, I understand how social media works, and it's sort of this brawl, and now it's this battle, and people are challenging me, and I don't engage in that, and I realize that a lot of people do. That's kind of the point. I see the people who troll me, and then I look at their account, and that's really all they've been tweeting about for the past 2-3 days. They just reply to anybody who's used a hashtag or whatever it is. And, and sometimes I will even say to them, best of luck in your job search, because I'm sort of saying to them, find something better to do with your time. And so that was my opinion was, you didn't get your way. The mandate wasn't lifted. And so then I don't know that people realize how governments work. It's the provincial governments that are requiring, different things. And so that's also kind of where I said, well, the federal government isn't doing anything about the mandate. No matter how long you stay there, they don't want to meet with you. So, okay, great. And then it's like, well, we've got lockdowns or whatever. And it's like, well, that's all from your own home area. That's not Ottawa dictating that. So maybe you're protesting at the wrong. But I always wonder then, why are people doing battle with each other on social media? But it's that's not going to make a difference. You can yell at me and call me an asshole and I can argue with you. At the end of the day, that's not changing. It's you're fighting with the wrong person. Why aren't you calling up your elected official then? Why aren't you spending time emailing them, phoning them, showing up at their door and having conversations with them? Well, maybe that's for the best if you're just going to hurl insults at them. They probably wouldn't want to meet with you, but that's another story. And so that was kind of my thought. Now, then where there's this protest in Alberta, they're blocking the highway and things like that. So to me, there was a bit of irony where these are truckers who are standing up for their freedoms, but they're blocking the highway, which is affecting their fellow truck drivers. So it's very bizarre where it's we're standing up for freedoms in Alberta. Same thing with Ottawa. You've blocked the streets, the businesses are shutting down. So it's kind of you're wanting freedom for Canadians, but you're scaring the shit out of the locals, and they're all pissed off, and you're keeping them all up. The members of parliament and the people that work in the government building in Ottawa, they're not there at 3 a.m, 4 a.m. So you're not hurting the officials that you're pissed off at. You're affecting the people that you're sticking up for and saying that have their freedoms taken away. Well, you are taking away their freedoms by doing that. And so then I'm called, I'm called a thug and a terrorist and all these things. And I just kind of go, wow, this is fascinating to me. And so same thing, ditto for Alberta, where it's like you're blocking the highway. So you're crippling you're making your own industry look really bad, and you're affecting your fellow truck drivers. So, you're not sticking it to the government. The MPs, the MLA, or the MPPs, they're called in Ontario MPs for the rest of the country. They're not losing. They are leaving and going home just fine. It's the Ottawa the citizens there that you are really affecting. So that was the story that played out last week and still happening today in Ottawa, moving across the country this weekend. Monday, Whoopi Goldberg. Oh my, her Holocaust comments. You already know what she said. I don't have to recap what happened. But as an entertainment reporter, I got to tell you, that story broke Monday morning. We've been talking about it all week. It's on my entertainment show again this morning, and I think every day we've had something. And so, the fallout was fast and furious. If Whoopi would have just apologized and left it at that, I think it might have passed over a little bit. But so Monday she goes on to Stephen Colbert, doubles down by saying that she's not going to offer fake apologies, but yet there was a tweet that she had put out apologizing, which was clearly a PR move. Somebody had either written it for her or had approved it, though there was a typo in it. And then Tuesday, she comes back onto The View. They debate. She's educated. She's schooled about the whole, Nazi and Jewish thing. And later that night, we got a press release. There was an announcement that she was suspended for 2 weeks. And so then on Wednesday on The View, everybody's tuning in because it's like, well, how is this going to be addressed, right? This is a show that is about hot topics. If this was another broadcaster, if this was somebody on Fox News or on CNN, they would have a big 6, 7, 8 minute discussion about it. People are commenting that, yes, when Roseanne was fired from ABC, it was discussed at the hot topics table. It's your employer, ABC, yes, but still. It's a hot topic. You've got to be genuine. You've got to be true to the concept and the premise of that feature of the show. That's what people tune in for. I don't tune in to watch that garage sale view your deal segment. I leave for the last 10, 15 minutes of the show. I don't watch the whole thing. So all of a sudden Joy Behar comes out and it's like, Whoopi's not here. You heard why. Let's move on. And that really pissed off a lot of people because it's like, wow, how hypocritical of you. Because, and then this is again where people were challenging me on Twitter. I say, well, I want to know what the co-hosts think of her apology, her doubling down, saying that she's not going to offer a fake apology. Do you think that ABC handled this correctly? Do you agree with the decision to suspend her? Should she be fired? Because Fire Whoopi was trending all week. Well, now we're hearing behind the scenes that the hosts are pissed off that she got suspended. So there's some drama there. She's gone for 2 weeks. I guess one more week now after this week. But, do you make an example out of her? I mean, that's not even making an example of her. Like I said, you had Megyn Kelly, you had Roseanne, you've had other broadcasters who have been, basically not necessarily their careers ruined because Megyn Kelly has sort of bounced back and I guess does a podcast now. Roseanne has kind of faded into the background, but so there was that. It's a little bit weird. And then there's the story about CNN's Jeff Zucker, who stepped aside because he's had this relationship with an executive there for quite some time. And apparently everybody at CNN knows about this. It's no secret. And Soledad O'Brien, who left there 8 years ago, was like, yeah, I knew about this relationship. So why is this a big deal? So it's another scandal for CNN that, has been criticized in recent months and years for having, sexual assault. Don Lemon is under investigation for sexual assault. You had Chris Cuomo, who was apparently accused of sexual assault, and that whole thing with his brother when he was the governor. And it's one scandal after another. Their ratings have gone down ever since Trump hasn't been president. Where does that leave the network? And then Brian Stelter, who's their media reporter, he's come under fire because people are saying, wait a second, this is the media guy who comments on his job is to comment on other media outlets, what they're doing, what they're not doing. He does comment on CNN. He is fair about doing things like that. But that's where it's like, wait a second, he's sounding shocked about this, but if everybody is there, everybody at CNN knows about this relationship, how did it miss the media guy who, comments and criticizes things like that? Like what? So was he not being genuine on his show? So people are saying that violates the company's code of conduct and he should be either removed from his job or he should resign. So we'll see what happens there. Now, you could also argue then because Brian's show, Reliable Sources, has had terrible ratings in the past anyway, so that nobody's really watching it. Does it really matter if he stays at the network? But the point is, again, make an example. So we'll see how that plays out. And let's move ahead now to Friday. It's the Olympics today. And my home broadcaster, the CBC, is broadcasting the games. And literally right now, as I'm talking to you, Scott Russell from CBC Sports is hosting the opening ceremony. So he is not joining us live, but we did talk earlier in the week. And so we have Scott's interview coming up. I know we couldn't do the entire thing live today. I apologize, but he kind of has a bigger job to do right now, and it just so happens that we do our show Friday morning at 9 a.m., and he's hosting the opening ceremony of the biggest sports event in the world, so I will let him pass on that one. So our segment with Scott Russell is coming up after the break right here on The Scribble.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
It's Olympics time again, and it means we've got a good 2 weeks of distraction from everything that's happening in the world, right? CBC's Scott Russell is here to help us escape. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. I imagine this is a good time for you. This is one of your favorite times of the year.
It is one of my favorite times every 2 years. The Olympic Winter Games, Summer Games. Yeah, I love being on the Olympic cycle, and, I always think it's the greatest sporting spectacle in the world. It has a great ideal, which is to bring people together in a peaceful time to see what's humanly possible. So, yeah, there's a lot of excitement, and I think you're right. I think that right now everybody needs the Olympics and this kind of distraction.
And it's interesting, when I hear from people like my parents who they have their events, right? They tune in for the curling and the hockey, but over the course of 2 weeks, end up watching a bunch of other events. They really get into it. And I think that, a lot of viewers tune in and then just leave the TV on or their device, for hours and just watch whatever is being shown. And somehow people become fans of every event when Canadians are competing. Maybe that's just the Canadian way. I'm not sure. I'm sure you witnessed that. You've experienced it.
Absolutely, and I don't think it's just the Canadian way, Jeremy. I think it's the way for many countries in the world. The great thing about the Olympics is when you see the sport, it's actually quite spectacular. And one of the favorite sports on television is the ski jumping. To see those people take flight and go that distance, and bobsledding. It's like NASCAR racing or something. It's tremendously exciting, and I think you're right. I think people fall in love with the sport, the spectacle of it, and things they may not have seen before. One of the biggest sports at the Olympic Winter Games is figure skating. And can you imagine that at the last games in Pyeongchang in 2018, Tessa Virtue and Scott Moyer, when they skated in the ice dance and they won that fantastic gold medal, you're talking about 7 to 10 million Canadians are watching that when they might not watch figure skating in that many numbers over the course of a regular season. It's the spectacle of it all, Jeremy. It's tremendously exciting.
You're right. You got a point there, right? Sometimes when it's on a Sunday afternoon, how many people are really paying attention? But during the Olympics, all eyes are on them.
Yeah, and I think those athletes come to be representatives of their various countries, in our case, Canada, They become great ambassadors. We tend to pull for the people from home, right? So they come from so many communities across the country, and to see them excel on the world stage, it's fantastic. And I think it's something which becomes kind of intoxicating when you look at it.
And you've covered, what is it now, 15 Olympics? How many Olympics?
Yeah, 15 Olympics. It's quite a run. I started in Seoul, South Korea at the Summer Games in 1988. And I've been around the world many times. I was in Beijing in 2008 when they first hosted the Summer Games. And it's a spectacle. It's fantastic. It's been quite a journey.
I remember, we covered the Vancouver Olympics, and we had cameras, all over the city. Obviously, not to the grand scale that the CBC covers it, but we had cameras all over the city. For the gold medal hockey game outside the arena, we had two of them, like in a mall, an electronics store. People were sitting on the floor watching. We were in a bar. And then, after the game, 200,000 people, they say, flooded into the streets. And even if you're not a hockey fan, which, it's hard to believe, but you were a fan for those few hours, that entire day. And I remember late into the night at the hotel room just hearing the honking and partying. You must have tons of memories and moments, whether it was when Canada won or maybe an athlete had that life-changing moment. Is there one or two that come to mind for you?
Well, you bring up Vancouver, and CBC didn't have the rights to the games in Vancouver, but I was there working for the National, our nightly news program on the network, and I was at Whistler, and I remember during the men's hockey game, the common area or the village square in Whistler there was nobody there, absolutely silent, and then Crosby scores the goal, they win the gold medal, and all of a sudden, all of these people poured into the village square in Whistler, and the place goes bananas. So there is that sort of great jubilation. I remember John Montgomery coming from his medal ceremony in Whistler when he won the gold medal in skeleton, and he took that jug of beer, and people were chanting his name and singing the national anthem. Absolutely spectacular. And then I remember at the Salt Lake City Games in 2002 when a cross-country skier who I'd come to know, Becky Scott from Vermilion, Alberta. Canadians don't win medals in cross-country skiing, but she did that day in Salt Lake City, and the reaction of Becky and her dad, Walter, who was there and mugging for the camera, it was great stuff. It was a moment of personal victory, but one that could be shared by the entire nation. And I think that's something which is tremendously alluring.
And I mean, let's talk about the games happening where they are, because that's it's been controversial from the beginning, whether it's the virus or that country's relationships with people or other countries. It's kind of a challenge to cover the games for CBC this time, right? With the team being split, a lot of people staying back in Canada for it.
It's a challenge. It's one we were able to overcome in the Tokyo experience. But, there's no question about it. To not be in the host city of the games is an impediment. But it's our challenge to be able to take Canadians there through the magic of television and whatever virtual means we can use, and to tell those stories. But you're right, it's a challenge. There's a much smaller crew in Beijing. The crew is there mostly to gather reaction from the athletes when they come through mixed zones at the end of their events. The crew is restricted to where they can go in China and in the city of Beijing. They can't be exposed to the Chinese people. So that is a challenge. It's also a challenge to tell the story of these games from the standpoint of how we as a country relate to China when our athletes march into the Bird's Nest Stadium for the opening ceremony. Because you're right, there are human rights considerations. COVID is a factor. There will be a diplomatic boycott of these games on the part of Canada, the United States, Australia, some other major countries. So we have to balance our coverage in order to tell the story of these Olympic Games. But I'll tell you this, the stars of the show, once the opening ceremony begins, are the athletes themselves. They're there to compete, and that is, to me, that's the most important part of the Olympic Games. It's a great sporting spectacle, and I think these athletes have won the right through their hard work and determination to compete at the Games.
Absolutely, and you guys are going to be covering that almost literally every hour of the day. So for the next 2 weeks, our schedules are going to look a little bit different, right? Because you've got the time zone change, so events are happening here in Canada, basically either in the middle of the night, early morning. But for prime time, evening viewing is when we're going to see a lot of it happening too. So how's it all happening with the CBC programming this time around?
We're on 23 hours a day,
Yeah.
And it's there's Olympic morning with Andy Petrillo, then there's Olympic daytime with Andrew Chang and Perdita Felicien. Then you're right, we roll into prime time. Overnight, we'll still be bringing you sport, because sport will actually be going on in China. So we'll have the day covered, and not only on the broadcast platform, but on so many other platforms, whether it be online and streaming, on CBC Gem. Our YouTube channel will be operating. We'll be producing material out of our digital studio. We'll have digital shows on cbcsports.ca, which will bring you up to speed on the 1 hour that we don't broadcast on television. So it's available all the time on every platform, and our challenge is to be able to bring the most important of that material to Canadians so they can access it wherever they are and whenever they want. And the schedule, the sporting schedule in Beijing has been adjusted to a certain extent in order to meet the primetime needs of a North American audience. I mean, that's just the facts of life when you're dealing with the United States and NBC, right? Mm-hmm. So you'll see a lot of figure skating in prime time. You'll see a lot of hockey in prime time. Curling will be occurring in prime time when it comes to Canadian broadcast time. So there's going to be lots going on at all times of the day.
Absolutely. You mentioned 23 hours. So what do people do for that other 1 hour? Is they're going to watch Dragon's Den reruns, I think is what's going to happen.
No, I think Coronation Street, right? No, I think Coronation Street is still on. And you're still going to be able to get the national news on CBC News Network as well. But the rest of the time, we'll be hard at it with the Olympic coverage.
All right. Well, we're going to be watching. You know how this works, Scott. Normally at the end of a segment, we say, remember, tune in at 7 p.m. I can't even do that. Just basically go to the CBC websites, and you're going to see the Olympics coverage. Is that fair to say, Scott?
Absolutely. And go to CBC Gem. But, on the main broadcast channel, Olympic Games prime time will be on at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and you'll get everything at that time, right through to 2 in the morning.
Absolutely. All right. So the CBC Scott Russell joining us online from Toronto. Great chatting with you. Enjoy the games.
Hey, thanks, Jeremy. All the best.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. People ask me if I miss anything about hosting live radio. But, in June I signed off from our syndicated radio show after 15 years, and I did an interview, and I said, I really don't miss it at all. Quite honestly, it was time. But just now, like I said, we're live on this Friday morning, It's 9:29 almost here in Winnipeg. And that's what I missed, though. We just had that 11-minute clip of Scott Russell. That's what I miss about the radio show. I'd host the 2-hour show, and we'd have these 15-minute blocks of music. So I really had nothing to do that entire time. So I could, play on my phone, I could talk to people, I can surf, I can get up, I can go to the bathroom, fix another drink, depending on the time of day we're doing it. In the 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning shows, I'd have a cocktail. And so that's what I miss. With the podcast, we might piece it together segment by segment, whatever. Today we're live. I'm like, hey, we've got the Scott interview happening. I can leave the room. Call me when it's over. So they give me the signal. We got 2 minutes left. I go and I pee. I come back. I'm good. Sorry, I pee. I wash my hands. I know I'm going to get letters if I say that I didn't do that. But anyway, thanks so much for tuning in. Feel free to give me a shout anytime. It's always awesome hearing from you. My email address is live@jbonair.com. Live@jbonair.com. I will talk to you same time, same place next week. Bye-bye for now, everybody.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat